why do you have poor utilization? You know, it's not just hearing I have poor utilization, and I could give you even the numbers what that means. But there's always a root cause. And it's because of if you understand actually the root cause, then you understand how these new approaches are actually going to resolve them. So the whole thing with silos was the fact that it sort of had a sense of ownership by each group that had and paid for that infrastructure. So you had the finance group, you had the development group, each got their own dedicated hardware that started with their design phase, the budget, and everything, to the point where also when you're coming to that design phase, you always overestimated what you needed, because it was always hard to go back to IT and said, give me some more. It was always better to add a little bit more. So the designer added, the sysadmins added. By the time it was all added, you ended up with extremely poor utilization. What made it worse was no one wants you to touch their system once it's in place. They own it, per se. So even when I determined later on that you had a 10% CPU utilization or 25% memory utilization, for example, they didn't allow me to go in there and grab that box. They said I paid for it. So there's the issue of why you have poor utilization in silo effect, is because it's extremely difficult to actually predict exactly what you need, and more importantly, change what was given, because no one would allow you to do it. In the siloed approach, it would take me 49 man-hours over 6 to 8 weeks, just by going to virtualization, just by creating this sort of a pooled approach to things. We dropped it down to 17 man-hours. With over a 2 to 3 week period. Not only that, the total cost of ownership of this was 39% reduction. So I mean, that's a significant drop for us. Now I probably should, you know, I'm not giving numbers, but since I'm giving you percentages, let me give you an idea about Cisco's size, because then you can figure it out yourself. I mean, we're 56 data centers and server rooms around the globe, supporting 65,000 people. We have about 15,000 data servers, about 18 petabytes of data. Now, I heard Mohammed throw out some numbers before, so now I feel very small. But still, when it comes to these numbers, 39%, that's a significant savings. And again, that time to go live is starting to meet some of the objectives, not all of them, that our CEO has been throwing at us. We have now validated that the deployment phase that had 17 man-hours, because the pool already exists and we've automated the deployment using the tools that are available now, we now have 0 man-hours to actually deploy a solution from an infrastructure point of view. And it takes 15 minutes to actually do the deployment. I mean, again, I'm doing the front-end work or the back-end work in advance. I'm creating those pools, and I'm creating tiers of pools so that when an application person comes in, there's no longer development activity to discuss with IT. They just come along and say, on their own, I need this tier, this class of an environment. And they get, through the tools, everything provisioned for them from a simple GUI in 15 minutes. Big difference from, again, 49 hours and 6 to 8 weeks. Because I could do all this reclaiming and provisioning exactly what is necessary at time that it's necessary, we saw that just switching over to the administration part, we gained another 18% total cost of ownership reduction. I mean, I don't know if you've done the math in your head, but between moving from the silo to virtualization, utilizing things like the benefits that we saw with UCS and our own Nexus line, and adding in this administration, we're proving out a 71% total cost of ownership reduction. So again, I think that's significant. And from a lead time that was 6 to 8 weeks down to 15 minutes. Virtualization also made continuity affordable for me. Before, it was always about having dedicated gear. And one of the first things when cuts are coming is when this standalone equipment has very little return on investment is just sitting there. That's one of the first things they want to cut. So by using virtualization, I could take other environments, such as development stage, something non-production, put them at the remote locations, and at time of disaster, Using the virtualization, just switch their personalities. I already have the production data there. I mean, that's an activity that doesn't change. But the whole idea of using the virtualization approach to just change its personality so that a development or stage environment now comes up as production. That cost saving made disaster recovery available for Cisco.